Hi everyone, I'm Nicola from Elimee Designs, and today I'm going to be showing you how to join your Festive Hygge square blanket squares together. Now please excuse my nasally voice, I am recovering from a bit of a cold, but you're not going to need too many pieces of equipment today. You've got your squares, your hook, your joining yarn and a pair of scissors. You will need a tapestry needle at the end just to join all of your ends together, but I've left that out for now. And as you can see, I've already done the preparation step. So I've added that single row all the way around each square. Just makes it that little bit easier to know where to place your stitches as you're going along. If you want to make your edges a little bit neater than mine, I would suggest doing it in your background colour. However, this blanket is for my daughter and I thought she'd like it to be as sparkly as possible. So I've done it in this sparkly yarn here. Now, you want to start by deciding on the layout of your squares. So this first square will be the top right corner of your blanket when it's facing you. And when you join it to the next square along, you're going to get this lovely flat braid effect. So this is my second square along my top row, and I'm now going to show you how I join it to my third square. So let's grab my hook and my yarn. We're going to make a slip knot, pop it onto our hook, and we're going to attach it to the left top corner stitch. Now just make a slip stitch in there. Now I do mark all of my corners with a stitch marker or whatever I have to hand, as you will see later, just because it makes things a little bit easier as you go along. I'm also going to turn my work this way, just so that it's easier for you to see what I'm doing. So I've slip stitched into this corner stitch. I'm now going to chain one to reach working height. I'm going to insert my hook into that same stitch and do a single crochet. I'm going to mark this single crochet just because I'll need to find it again later. Next, I'm going to make a series of loops along this edge for my flat braid. So to make each loop, you need to chain 3, skip 2 stitches, and then single crochet. Let's just pull off a bit more yarn. So that again is 1, 2, 3 chains, skip 2 stitches, and then single crochet. Now I'm going to fast forward the video a little bit here for you, just so that you don't have to sit and watch me make all of these stitches, but I will meet you again at the bottom corner. Okay, now you've reached that bottom left corner, and you will find that because of the way that we've done our preparation row along the edge before doing these loops, that there's not 2 stitches to skip before you get to the corner stitch. For myself, it's actually 3 stitches. Now, you may decide to skip 1, to skip 2, to skip 3, depending on what you think looks best. What you want to make sure is that once you've done this loop, it sits nice and flat, particularly once you've joined it to the opposite square. If it doesn't look nice, then just frog it back and try skipping a different amount. It might mean that you end up having to put an extra loop in, but that's absolutely fine. So, as you will see, I've now got the whole edge of this square with these tiny little loops going all the way along. Let's just move that out of the way. So I just pop my square there so you can see it. We are now going to bring in the square that we're joining it to. So for me, this is one of those lovely festive patterns. So in order to join our squares together, all we're going to do is to chain 5. We're then going to single crochet into that bottom right corner stitch of our next square. So you'll see they're now joined together with this chain 5 here. Now it's really important to remember that for internal joins, and by that I mean obviously this is row 1, there's going to be a row 2 here that will join to it, you chain 5 at the edge. When you do an external join, so like you will when you get back to the top here, because this is going to be the outer edge of the blanket, you only chain 3 to join them together. The reason for that will become clear as we go along. Oops, there goes my hook flying. So we've got our last single crochet, chain 5, single crochet here. Now, in order to join them going back, I'm going to, in a fashion, make chain 3s again. So this time we're going to chain 1, pull up a big loop. I tend to pop this on my finger so I don't lose it. Now from the front to the back, you pop your crochet hook through that last loop that you made. Put that loop of yarn back on, tighten it up, and then pull your hook back through so that it's on the right side of your work again. Chain, oh, right, yeah, just caught something there. Chain 2, and then because we skipped 3 for that last loop, I'm going to skip 3 for this one. So 1, 2, 3, and pop a single crochet in. Now working up, so again, chain 1, go for the next loop up, pop it onto your hook, tighten it, pull it through, chain 2, and now we're going to go back to the skip 2 that we were doing before. And we're going to skip 2 for each loop going all the way up. Again, I will fast forward this section because it's going to be mightily dull for you to watch, and I will meet you at the top corner. And then for this last one, as we did the skip 3 at the start of the row, you've only got 2 left, and pop a single crochet into that corner stitch. Now, as we discussed earlier, as this is an internal join, we're only going to chain 3, and we're going to join it back to our original square. So that's why we marked that first single crochet. We're going to take that stitch marker out, and then we're going to wiggle our hooks in and slip stitch into that original join, chain 1, cut our yarn, pull to get your end to come out, and pull tight. So now you should find, when you flatten things out again, that you have that lovely braided join, just like we showed you with the other squares. You do now have a few ends to weave in up here, but those are the only ends for this part of the join, which is great. So go ahead and add any further squares that you have for row 1, and then come back and join me to see how to add on row 2 underneath. Okay, so we've now joined all of our top row together. As you can see, I've got 3 squares going across my top row, and now we're going to show you how to join this row to the row underneath. So first thing we need to do is flip the whole thing around so it's upside down, and this is the bottom edge of that far square. As I'm right-handed, and a lot of crocheters are, I'm going to start on the right-hand side and crochet along to the left. So if you grab your yarn again, make a slip knot, pop it onto your hook, and then into that corner stitch we're going to attach the yarn. Give it a good tug, chain 1 to reach working height, and then do a single crochet into that same stitch, and exactly as before, mark it with a stitch marker so that we can find it again later. Now, exactly like the first part of the previous join, we're going to work little loops going all the way along. So just in case you have forgotten, that is chain 3, skip 2 stitches and make a single crochet. Now, just like before, you don't want to watch me making lots and lots of these little loops. So I'm going to fast forward the video until we get to the first section where our squares join together to show you how to get across. Okay, so just like when we were joining our previous squares together, I've got 3 stitches remaining instead of 2. So for my last loop, I'm going to chain 3, skip 3, and single crochet into that corner stitch. So it's the same stitch where you attached your chain 5 earlier. Now, to get across from this square to the next square, this time you're going to chain 3, pull up a nice big loop. Now at the bottom, as you can see, you've got the first square, you've got the chain 5 loop and the second square. So you're going to put your hook through that chain 5 loop, pop it back on, tighten it, pull it through and chain 3. You're then going to single crochet into that corner stitch from the square opposite. And now you've got them all joined together. So you've got your chain 5 going around here and your new join going through the middle. Now, exactly as you did along here, you're going to keep making your little loops. You're going to do these chain 3, put it through, chain 3 every time you come to a join until you get to the end of the row, depending on how many squares you've made. So again, I'm going to fast forward this section so that you don't have to watch me do it all, and I'll show you what to do when we get to the end of this row. Okay, so you've just formed the last loop on that row and single crocheted into that very corner stitch. So exactly as before, when we were joining our 2 squares together, because this is going to be an outer edge, it's the end of a row, you're going to chain 3. I just flip my row up onto the table and grab my next square. Now, just make sure that you have your squares so that they're all going to be going in the same orientation. So this is the top of my blanket up here. This is the bottom of my blanket down here. So my square will not be going right way up as I'm joining along the top edge. So just bear that in mind because you don't want to have to unpick all of your work and do it again later. So exactly as before, take out that corner stitch marker, pop in your hook, and my yarn is tugging at me. Let's pop it in that way, there we go, and make that single crochet. Now, exactly like when you did the join for the squares, you're going to chain 1, take the loop off your hook, make it nice and big, go through that little loop on the opposite square, pull it up, chain 2. Remember, we skipped a different amount for that first loop, although it appears this is where my preparation row joined together, so it's not wanting to go in there very well. There we go. Do that single crochet, chain 1, put it on your finger, and keep working our way back along that row, making the braid. Now again, I'm going to fast forward this section for you until we get to where the 4 squares will meet together. Okay, so you've just placed a single crochet into the corner stitch of your new square, and the question is, if I flatten it all out for you to see, how you're going to join it to this next square, but equally how you're going to join it to this side of the blanket. Now, if I move my hook out of the way and pull it apart a little, let me just take my hook out actually, you'll see here is where you did your chain 3, you've got your chain 5 sort of going round in a loop, and then you've got this other chain 3. Now what you're going to do this time is to chain 3, take your yarn off your hook, and this hole here, so where you've got that chain 3 that's about to go through the chain 5, is where you're going to place your hook in order to pull up a loop, do a chain 3, and then join back to the square. So you're joining the squares diagonally. When later we go down this edge, back up the next square, and we go to join here, again we're going to join diagonally, and it will be through that chain 3 space before you went through the chain 5 space. Just because it might be a little bit harder for you to see when I'm actually doing it, I hope that gives you a good explanation of what we're looking for. So we're going to chain 3, take that loop off our hook, find that chain 3 space just before it goes through the chain 5, pop it back on our hook, pull it through, chain 3, and then single crochet, if I can get some more yarn, back into that corner stitch again. Now, exactly as you're familiar with, you're now going to make a series of little loops going down this edge. So I will meet you when we get to the bottom corner. Okay, so you've just made that final single crochet in the bottom corner of your square. Let's turn it around so your square will now be the right way up as it's lying. Now, how many you chain here before joining the next square depends on whether or not this is the bottom of your blanket here, or whether you're going to be joining another row underneath. Now, because I am joining another row, I am going to chain 5. Oh, my yarn split a bit there. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If this is going to be the external edge of your blanket, then you need only chain 3. So we're going to bring in our next square. This time it's right way up, just again so that all of our squares are facing the same way. Oh, excuse the bits of fluff. Take out that corner stitch marker and helps I get my yarn on the right side first. There we go. Grabs, oh gosh, knocking everything now. There we go. So through that corner stitch and make a single crochet. Now, exactly as you've done for every other join, you're going to do your chain 1, pull it off, put it through the loop, chain 2, skip, and then do your single crochet. Remember, when you skip your 3 at the bottom, that means you skip 3 on this side. When you skip 2 going further up, you skip 2 on this side. Each time it should be nice and symmetrical. And again, I will meet you at the join. Okay, so just as before, I've just placed that single crochet into that corner stitch. And now we need to join this square that we're working on to the opposite corner square. Now, it's a little bit harder to see now, which is why I tried to explain all of the spaces earlier. But once you've done your chain 3, let's just pull up a loop for a second. You're going to be going for not the chain 3 space that we did this connection with, not the chain 5 space, but the chain 3 space next to it is where you're going to want to connect to. So if I just put my yarn back on, do my 1, 2, 3, pull up a loop, again, chain 3, chain 5, chain 3, so put it through that loop, pull it up to the top, do a chain 3, and single crochet back into that corner stitch. Now if I just pull it off again there, you can now see you've got this lovely connection in the middle. You've got your flat braids going in every direction, and exactly as with every other join that you've done, you're going to work along this row, joining chain 1, go through the loop, chain 2, move along each little loop until you get to the next join. Now the next join, because I've got 3 squares, will be exactly like this one, and then when I get to the very left end of the row, it's going to be like the very right end of the row where I do my chain 3 and single crochet into that corner stitch to finish the row. You're then going to repeat this whole section that you've been doing to join row 1 to row 2 for any subsequent rows. So I'll have a row 3 underneath, weave in all of your ends, and then come back and watch the joining video. I hope that you have found this helpful. If there are any points that still seem a bit tricky and you'd like me to explain again, just let me know.